Today we're going to look at and see is two small generators better than one big one. We'll go through a few different scenarios to see what might be the better option for you guys. We'll include some storage options. We're also going to go through and load test the two small generators against doing one big generator, and also do the sound check to see what's the difference running one generator or two. Now, as we take a look at these two smaller generators, I did a comparison test against both of them to show that they're pretty much exactly the same. And so we're going to run those two up against this guy, and we'll do a few different comparisons to see, well, which might be the better option. As we take a look at both of these, there are a lot of similarities as far as both small generators being the same weight as a big one. And then if you were to take the big generator and basically split it in half, well, that's basically taking out the storage options that you would have storing the two small ones or one big one. Even if you look at the faceplates, their connector plugs are pretty similar. The only thing that really is different is that you do have an electric start when it comes to the Predator generator. Now again, as far as weight goes, if you don't have any fuel inside the generator, just the oil and the battery, the Predator comes out right to 100 pounds. And if you look at the two small AI power generators, they come out right about just over 50. So basically making the weight pretty much the same. But when it comes to maintenance, you are going to have to double up with two generators to maintain, which in reality, it's not really that big of a deal. Now, when it comes to storing, this is a pretty common size when it comes to an RV. As far as the storage compartment goes, I can fit both of these generators in here really well. But when it comes to trying to put in the Predator, well, it does take a little bit more finagling as you are lifting 100 pounds at once, and, well, found out it's just not really even worth it. Now, while carrying 50 pounds in each hand is kind of a chore, rolling this thing really is nice, unless it's not a smooth surface. But when it does come to lifting them up into the back of a truck, well, it is a little bit easier. Even with these new trucks nowadays, the tailgates really are getting so much higher. So when you do have to lift that 100-pound generator, you can see here, well, it does take a little bit of effort as I had to get my knee just up over that a little bit. And it's not something I'd want to do all the time. We'll take a quick look at the amps and the wattage before we test out, and you can see the two smaller generators actually do have a little bit more power than the one big one, and on everyday pricing, the two generators are actually a little bit cheaper. We'll start off with our sound test first, and we're going to start with one generator with the eco mode off and the exhaust facing us, and we'll do a few other tests along the way. And you can see with one generator and the eco off are right about 72 decibels. But as soon as we turn that eco mode on, it quiets down significantly. You can see we're hovering right about 63 decibels. So now we'll go ahead and have both the generators facing us, and the eco mode is on, but I did have some birds kind of chirping in the background. I did wait several minutes for them to go away, which they just never did, but I've done this test before several times, and normally 64 decibels with two of them running in eco mode is about where they live. Okay, and now with the eco mode off, you can see that our decibel numbers are right about 73, and this is with two generators. And I want you to pay attention to these numbers for later because you will see something that's kind of interesting. And now with the eco mode on and our exhaust turned away, which is how most people are going to run these, you're at about 62 decibels. And this is about 23 feet away. And so we'll go ahead and do the Predator generator. And this is one reason why this generator really is so popular, is because of the sound levels. This is actually with the eco mode off. And you can see it's hovering right about 62.5 decibels. And so we'll go ahead and turn on that eco switch. And you can see now we're running into those pretty much 60 decibel flat, even hitting into those high 50s. So we'll go ahead and turn the exhaust away from us. Now you can see we're getting into where most of those expensive generators live. Even like the Honda and the Yamaha, they live around those low 50s and mid 50 areas. And well, you can see that's one of the reasons it is so popular. So we'll fire up these two generators. We're going to get a load test going with these. I'm going to use my 30 amp service trailer, and we're going to run through some tests using that. And I have a little meter here that we'll be able to throw up on the screen here in a second so we can see everything live as it happens. Alright, the only thing that is on right now is the converter in my trailer, and that's what charges your batteries. Now you could save a little bit of power by actually going to the breaker panel and shutting off the converter, because say you had solar charging up your batteries, well, you wouldn't really need that. So that could save you 1.5 amps to 2 amps depending on what you're doing with your trailer. Okay, we'll start off by turning on the AC, and the fan is going to be on low. And so that fan will come on, start drawing a couple amps there. Then the compressor is going to kick on here in a second. You'll see it with the meter. It's going to jump up just over 20 amps and then settle down after it kind of gets running. You can see there as it takes off. Now this is a 15K BTU unit, so it's not 13.5. This one does require a little bit more starter power and a little bit more running power. It's going to use about 12 to 13 amps after it kind of gets going and settles down. And then say you want to save a little bit of propane, well, we're going to turn that fridge on electric, and that's going to also boost up another 2 to 3 amps right there as well. And so we'll let that settle down. We'll go ahead and start working that converter a little bit more, just to kind of show you that it's going to draw another amp or so by the time you turn on, let's say, some outside lights. Then you're going to turn on more inside lights, and you have kids running around and they're turning everything on, and you're outside doing something else and you're not paying attention. Well, they're just making your generators work that much harder. So by turning on all those lights and stuff, you're making that converter work another amp or 2. So again, if you turn that off at the breaker panel, that might be 3 amps that you could save. All right, so dinner's getting ready to go. We're going to turn on the fan. We're going to turn on another light. And this is going to draw another probably 1.5 amps or so. And then we're going to go ahead and fire up that microwave. And you'll see that guy kind of kick over. That's going to be about another 11 amps or so. So if you look at the voltage, and if you look at our amperage, it's actually looking really good. And again, if we look at the ratings on these generators, 26.6 is kind of our rated amount of amps. And I do want to show you guys something here real quick. Now if we take a look at the generators, our rating is 26.6, but neither one of those generators were actually showing overload yet. They weren't flashing at all. And if you look at what our sound decibel levels are, well, we're hovering right at about 75, and keep this number in mind too for later. All right, we're gonna go back in and try to drop a little bit more power, and again, the overload light is not on yet, even though we are almost 2 amps fully over of what the rated is for 2 generators. Now this guy's gonna draw up about 4 amps to start, and it will settle down to about 3, so we'll see what it does. And there you go, you can pretty much see the generators were like, no, good, we're not gonna do that. So they pretty much shut down. And one thing I did find surprising is, I wanna show you something, is that during this test before, both the generators would shut off. They'd go into overload mode, like the one on the right, you see the light on? Well, the one on the left is still working and pumping out power, as you can see by the meter. If it was fully dead, the meter would be dark. Both of these would be in lit mode, but this was the only test where one stayed on and one went off, so I kind of found that a little bit odd. Anyway, so most of the time they both shut off, and that's how they should have worked, but this time it didn't. But I also want to show you one other thing too with running just 2 generators. And say you want to run your AC and you want to run just 1 generator. Well, so what we're going to do here is we're going to turn on the AC unit real quick, and again, this is a 15K unit. So we'll go out here. Both of the generators fired up the AC unit just fine. And if we take a look here at our amp meter, now again, if you were to turn off your breaker panel and turn off that converter, you could save 1.5 amps or so. And that might help the generator not have to work so hard, but running 1 generator at basically max is not really the best thing for it. It can do it. For how long? I'm not really sure. Now, if this was a 13.5, you might be able to get away with that. It'd be running at probably 80%, but right now we're basically at 100% load on this generator. So it would be better to run both of them at the same time, and they would both just be sharing the load equally. All right, now we're gonna run and do that Predator test. We'll kind of do the same thing. We'll start off with just a converter on and a couple lights. We'll go through and turn a few things on. So we'll go back over to the AC unit and get this guy turned on. Then you'll go ahead and see the amps. Theirs are going to come back up as the fan kicks on. And then in a minute the compressor will go and you'll see those amps jump up. All right, and there we go. Just hearing the generator kick up. Amps are coming up. And we'll go ahead and turn on that fridge again. That's going to be another couple amps there. And we're just going to go ahead and start turning on a bunch of other stuff since you've already seen this part of the test. But there are some things I want to show you that happened with the Predator here in a minute or two. So we'll go ahead and turn on all the lights, kind of do what we did last time. Turn on the microwave and the oven light, and turn on the fan there, get the converter going as well. Now, if you remember the test we did earlier with the 2 generators, they were running about the same amount of amperage, right? We were at 28 amps. Well, the overload lights were not on the 2 small generators. And the Predator is rated at 25 amps, right? Well, so the light's on, and also look at the decibel levels. We're only 2 decibels under where we were with the 2 other generators under full load. So they're both pretty loud when it comes to being under a load of this amount. So that's something else to consider. You know, hey, it's not like this thing is that much quieter when there's a full load on it. But we're going to go ahead and get this thing to kind of go into limp mode. We'll turn on some more power. We'll put the fan on high on the AC unit. And again, remember that the other ones, they were not flashing the overload light yet because they're rated at 26.6 and the Predator is rated at 25 as far as the amperage goes. But we're still looking good as far as our voltage. We're at 115 volts, so we're doing fine there. We'll turn on a few more lights. We're going to go back to this little heater. And if you guys don't know what this little heater is, this thing is great. I have it in the bathroom, and I'm going to put one more in my bedroom, but it puts out about 3 amps of power is what it uses. And it'll dry my towels in the bathroom, my hand towels as well, and it keeps it nice and warm there when you want to take a shower. So those are great little options to have in your RV if you have one. I'll put a link in the description if you guys want to see it. And you can see the generator is still going. It hasn't shut off yet, but that light is steady, so it should be shutting off here just about any second. It's still going though. And there it goes, shut down. So as we take a look back real quick, you can see the cost is a little bit less for 2, and the weight is pretty much the same. It is easier to store and move around the little ones, and technically you do get more power. Now, if one of them breaks down, you still have another, but there is less maintenance, but you only have one. Anyway, I hope you guys liked the video. Be sure to like and subscribe.